If you like this content and want to support us, please subscribe to our channel. That helps us create more content like this and bring you a new episode every day. Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate you tuning in.
So let's just jump right into it.
Oh.
When you, the listener, picture the training regimen of a top-tier professional athlete today, you almost certainly envision something like, I don't know, a Formula One garage.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
you picture banks of monitors, biometric sensors everywhere, algorithms crunching all this telemetry in real time.
Yeah.
Just absolute cutting-edge precision.
Exactly. Because in a sport like golf, where the global equipment market is projected to cross $30 billion by 2025, you'd assume the practice bays look exactly like that high-tech F1 garage.
I mean, it's the natural assumption to make. We see the TV broadcasts, we know the insane amount of money involved, and we think, well, the modern golf professional must be operating essentially as a data scientist in a polo shirt.
Right. And if you walk down the driving range at a major tournament, the marketing certainly supports that illusion. Artificial intelligence branding is literally everywhere. Like every new club, every app claims to be powered by next-generation algorithms.
But the reality is quite different.
It really is. When we dive into the actual source material for today's deep dive, which is this massive stack of industry reports, market data, and coaching surveys, we've been looking at that pristine F1 garage. Suddenly looks a lot more like a guy with a clipboard and maybe one really expensive gadget. The technological landscape in golf today is just completely fractured.
Yeah, we are in a really profound transition period right now. We're watching an entire sport try to move from a century of tactile intuition, where success was, based entirely on feeling the swing, to a future of computational precision. And that shift is tearing at the economic and psychological fabric of the game.
Which brings us to our mission for today. We want to cut through all that marketing hype and answer one central question for you guys. Where do we actually stand today regarding the use of the latest technologies by golf professionals? Because when you look at the actual adoption numbers, the gap between what's available and what's being used is staggering.
The scale of that illusion is what stands out immediately. When we break down the adoption metrics among PGA professionals, we see a very high volume of usage, but incredibly shallow integration.
So let's map out what that shallow integration actually looks like. From the data we have, it seems like there's this massive bias toward just the most obvious basic layer of technology.
Yeah, the adoption is entirely bottom-heavy. Right now, a vast majority of PGA professionals, we're talking about 65 to 80%, use basic launch monitors.
These are the ones that use radar or cameras, right?
Yeah, exactly. Systems that use Doppler radar or high-speed cameras to track the ball as it flies through the air. Household names like TrackMan or FlightScope. But the moment you ask those same professionals to step beyond just tracking the ball and start tracking the human body, the adoption just falls off a cliff.
Wow.
Yeah, only 30 to 50% of professionals are using advanced 3D biomechanical systems. And even crazier, a tiny fraction, like 20 to 35%, use structured putting systems like PuttLab or Quintic.
Wait, let me make sure I'm understanding this right. They're overwhelmingly measuring what the ball does after it's hit, but they are mostly ignoring the engine that actually hit the ball in the first place, the human body.
That is the reality today. And, well, even within that majority who do use launch monitors, there's this fundamental difference between buying the tool and actually understanding the data.
Right, having the gear versus knowing what it does.
Exactly. Take TrackMan, for example. It's considered the gold standard for outdoor radar tracking, holding a 29.7% market share. And it spits out incredibly dense data. It tells you the exact tilt of the golf ball's axis in the air, the precise path the club was traveling at the millisecond of impact.
But I'm guessing that's a lot to process.
It's a mountain of data. To truly understand the cascading effects of those metrics, a coach needs rigorous education. But currently, only 48% of elite coaches have actually gone through the certification process to master that data.
Man, I was trying to think of an equivalent for you listening right now, and it feels a lot like having a state-of-the-art MRI machine in a medical clinic,
Yeah.
but the doctor only knows how to read it like a standard X-ray.
Oh, that's a highly accurate parallel.
Like you have this $1 million piece of hardware that can show you every torn ligament and microfracture, but you're just using it to check if a bone is visibly snapped in half.
Yeah, if you haven't done the deep educational work to understand the interconnected physics of the club and the ball, you basically end up just staring at the big, obvious numbers flashing on the screen.
Like total distance and ball speed.
Exactly. You miss the entire nuance of the underlying mechanics.
So if a coach is struggling to interpret the hardware data themselves, It stands to reason they'd turn to software to do the heavy lifting, right?
Hmm.
We hear about AI constantly in the golf space. Is software bridging this gap?
Actually, no. The illusion versus reality gap is widest when we look at software. Despite the relentless hype we see, AI adoption in professional coaching is still in its absolute infancy. Only an estimated 10 to 20% of PGA professionals use AI in any meaningful way.
Wait, really? That low?
It gets worse. Less than 5 to 10% integrate it systematically into their daily coaching workflow.
But how are they even defining usage here? Because if they aren't using it to analyze swings every day, what are they doing with it?
Well, when surveyed coaches say they use AI, the data reveals they're mostly using tools inspired by large language models, like ChatGPT, for administrative tasks.
You mean like writing emails?
Exactly. They're writing newsletters to their clients, drafting emails, maybe creating social media captions. They might occasionally ask it a basic analysis question, but it is certainly not functioning as the core diagnostic engine of player development.
I have to pause you there because the data we're looking at presents a massive paradox. The potential of AI in golf isn't just theoretical, it's actively cutting strokes.
Right. The potential is undeniable.
Yeah, we have data showing that 62% of PG Tour pros are already using AI caddy apps like Arcos to optimize their on-course strategy, things that tell them exactly what club to hit based on wind, elevation, and their personal history. Plus, AI apps have helped 78% of users reduce their scores by at least 5 strokes in 6 months.
And we also see consumer apps where autonomous AI chatbots are successfully resolving 85% of common swing issues without human intervention.
Right, so if the data definitively proves that this software works, why are 90% of coaches essentially ignoring it in their daily practice?
It mostly comes down to perception and, frankly, institutional inertia. For the vast majority of legacy instructors, AI is still viewed as a novelty. It's perceived as an experimental gimmick rather than a reliable foundational tool.
A gimmick that objectively makes you better. That's wild. It's fascinating that the people whose entire livelihood depends on lowering scores are the most resistant to the tool doing exactly that, which actually highlights a completely counterintuitive trend in the sources regarding the everyday player. Let's look at the amateur golfers for a second.
Yeah, amateurs approach technology with an entirely different philosophy. We see a significant chunk of recreational players, about 25 to 40%, using some form of technology, usually
Yep.
phone apps, wearable tech, or GPS watches. But only 10 to 15% actually use structured data for genuine improvement. What's critical is why they're using it.
I want to pull a specific data point from the Whole 19 app usage report here because it completely shattered my assumptions. If I were to ask you to picture the person logging every single statistical detail of their golf round onto a smartphone app, you'd probably picture like a 24-year-old hyper-competitive scratch golfer.
Right, the conventional wisdom absolutely points to the elite tech-native player.
But the reality is the exact opposite. The typical users of advanced on-course tracking technology are average-aged, casual players who often carry much higher handicaps. It's the person shooting a 95 who is diligently mapping every shot on their screen. Why is the player who struggles the most leaning into the data the hardest?
Because for the amateur, the technology serves as a psychological safety net. We call these accessibility and gamification tools. I mean, golf is an inherently frustrating sport. So for a higher handicap player, technology gamifies the experience.
It makes it fun even when you're playing badly.
Exactly. Even if they played a terrible round of golf, they get a digital reward, they get a badge on their app, they see their driving distance tracked on a virtual leaderboard like at Topgolf or TopTracer. They unlock a milestone. It transforms a punishing physical experience into an engaging digital game.
They're playing a game within the game to sort of soften the blow, whereas the professional,
The professional and the highly committed elite amateur with a handicap under 15 is not looking for a digital pat on the back. They utilize what we categorize as performance systems. They want the cold, objective, measured truth of why the ball missed the fairway by 3 yards because their paycheck depends on it.
that makes total sense.
Mm.
And speaking of the amateur experience, we have to talk about the rise of the dually. This blew my mind.
Oh, the dually is fundamentally reshaping the economics of the entire sport. This is a demographic of golfer who plays both traditional outdoor golf and indoor off-course simulator golf, but the data reveals a massive tipping point. 51% of simulator users haven't stepped foot on a real grass course in the last 12 months.
Over half. We are talking about millions of people driving a multi-billion-dollar simulator industry, and they aren't even playing what we traditionally call golf. They're basically playing a video game where you swing a real club.
Because they're utilizing technology to solve the logistical barriers of traditional golf, a real round takes 5 hours, requires daylight, depends on good weather. A simulator session takes 90 minutes in a climate-controlled room. The friction is completely gone.
So if you step back and look at this entire ecosystem, you have PGA pros using expensive hardware without the software to read it. You have everyday amateurs gamifying their bad rounds, and you have half the market playing exclusively indoors. It totally makes sense that the technology landscape itself has fractured to meet all these wildly different demands.
The landscape is incredibly heavily segmented. If we map out this disconnected ecosystem, we can organize the current technology into 5 distinct layers. To understand the friction in the industry, you have to understand what specific problem each layer is trying to solve.
All right, let's build that stack for everyone listening from the ground up. Where does it start?
The foundational layer is outcome tracking. This is the what happened layer. We're talking about the launch monitors we discussed earlier, TrackMan, or photometric systems like the Foresight GC Quad. Their sole job is to capture the physics of the ball at impact: speed, spin rate, launch angle.
Okay, so they're the ultimate truth tellers of ball flight. You know exactly what the ball did, but the ball only does what the club tells it to do, and the club only does what the body tells it to do.
Right, which brings us to the second layer, biomechanical analysis. This is the why it happened layer. This is the engine of the swing. Historically, analyzing human movement required putting a player in a clunky suit covered in reflective sensors. But today, tools like Sportsbox AI or GolfTech's OptoMotion use markerless video.
Explain how that works, because that sounds like literal science fiction to anyone who hasn't seen it.
It relies on computer vision algorithms. You literally just film your swing with a standard 2D smartphone camera. The AI then extrapolates depth and motion from those flat pixels, mapping over 4,000 invisible data points onto your body. It can tell you, down to the degree, how much your hips swayed, or exactly how your spine angle changed.
So you have the ball flight, and you have the full body movement. But you only use a full swing to get to the green. Putting is almost half the game.
And historically, it's been the least measured aspect of the sport. That is layer 3, the precision layer. Systems here solve the mystery of the putting green. You have tools like PuttLab that track the microscopic mechanics of the putting stroke itself, and systems like Quintic that use high-speed cameras to track how the ball rolls.
I have layer 4, which we touched on with the Duali trend.
Yes, layer 4 is the simulator environment. This is the engagement layer. These are the software platforms like E6 Connect that take the physics from the launch monitors and wrap them in high-fidelity graphics engines, allowing you to play Pebble Beach in your basement.
Which leaves us with the 5th layer. And from reading the sources, this seems to be the crucial piece that makes or breaks absolutely everything else.
The 5th category is the intelligence layer. This is the advanced AI. This layer's entire purpose is to provide contextual interpretation of the oceans of data generated by the first 4 layers. Tools like GOT or ArcGOS live here.
And this is where I really want to connect this back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
Think about how you operate in your own profession. If your company rolls out a new software system that generates a daily spreadsheet telling you your sales are down 12%, but it offers zero insight into why they're down or how to fix the process, that software is basically useless. It's just an expensive stress generator.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
In golf, downloading an app that tells you your hip swayed 3 inches is completely pointless if it doesn't immediately prescribe a physical drill to correct that sway. That is the fundamental difference between an analyzer and a coach. An analyzer just dumps data on your lap. A coach tells you what to do next.
And that distinction is the exact root of a massive trust deficit currently paralyzing the industry. Our sources indicate that only about 30 to 40% of professional coaches actually trust the insights generated by AI.
Why the intense pushback, though? If an AI coach can prescribe the drill, what is the barrier?
There are 3 primary barriers driving this resistance. The first is simply economic, cost. To build a fully integrated bay with ball tracking, body tracking, and intelligence software costs anywhere from $15,000 to $55,000. It creates a really stark economic divide in the industry.
That makes total sense. It's the price of a luxury car just to outfit one hitting mat. What's the second hurdle?
Complexity. The human brain is just not designed to process 4,000 biometric data points in real time. When a player or a coach looks at that wall of information, it often leads to paralysis by analysis. The player stops trying to execute a fluid movement and instead tries to fix a number on a screen.
They lose their athleticism entirely. They're trying to manually operate a machine instead of swinging a club. And the third barrier,
This one is the most fascinating. It's rooted in mindset and culture. Specifically, coaches fear the confident mistake, or what data scientists call the hallucination factor.
let me break down how this works in practice, because this is where AI fundamentally clashes with human biology. Imagine you have a golfer whose club face is 2 degrees open at the top of their swing. An AI system analyzes the video, flags the open face as a mathematical error, and demands the player fix it immediately to achieve a perfect mechanical swing.
Right, because the AI is technically correct.
Exactly. Technically correct. However, the AI lacks human context. It doesn't realize that for the last 20 years, this specific player has developed a microscopic subconscious flick of their wrist at the exact moment of impact that perfectly squares that open club face. That's called a functional compensation. Jim Furyk built a Hall of Fame career on a swing full of compensations.
Yep.
If that player listens to the AI and fixes the club face at the top, they destroy their functional timing at the bottom. The AI gives advice that is technically sound, but contextually disastrous.
Yeah.
It breaks the player.
That is precisely the fear. AI is brilliant at pattern recognition, but right now it's pretty blind to the artistry of human compensation. And this fear manifests differently depending on where you are in the world. The data shows a sharp cultural divide. European coaches exhibit significantly higher resistance to AI integration compared to coaches in the US or Asia.
Why are the Europeans pushing back harder?
Well, European coaching culture is historically deeply rooted in mentorship. It prioritizes relationship building, psychology, and the intuitive feel of the swing over pure mechanics. They perceive over-reliance on automated systems as a threat to the human element of coaching. The resistance isn't really about the technology failing, it's a fear of losing the art of instruction. It's about a loss of control.
Okay, so let's synthesize everything we've uncovered. We have incredible technology across 5 distinct layers. We have amateurs using it for gamified comfort, pros using only a fraction of its potential, and a massive trust issue rooted in cost, complexity, and a fear of losing the human touch. Which brings us to the absolute critical finding in all of these sources. If there's one thing you take away from this deep dive, it's this next point.
Yeah, the ultimate conclusion of the data is that the golf industry is currently suffering from a massive systemic data silo problem.
We hear data silo in corporate tech all the time. What does it actually look like on the practice tee?
It means that while the individual technologies are incredibly powerful, they are entirely walled off from one another. A coach might use a brilliant pressure mat to measure how a player shifts their weight. They have a completely different smartphone app for 3D body tracking and a massive radar unit for ball flight, but none of those systems communicate.
They're just speaking different languages.
Exactly. The weight transfer data doesn't map onto the body tracking video, and neither of them sync with the ball flight radar. There is no unified ecosystem.
It's like trying to build a world-class race car, and you buy a state-of-the-art engine, perfect aerodynamic tires, and a brilliant suspension system. But when you put them together, the steering wheel isn't connected to the axle. The individual components are flawless, but without integration, you're just spinning out.
And because of these silos, coaches are entirely missing that fifth layer, the intelligence layer.
Hmm?
Without integration, artificial intelligence cannot provide holistic context. Consequently, most coaches are spending all of their valuable time manually diagnosing identifying the symptoms of a bad swing across 3 different screens instead of instantly interpreting the root cause.
If you are practicing without integrated data today, you are essentially practicing inside a thick fog. You might be swinging hard, sweating through hundreds of golf balls, but you have absolutely no idea where you are actually heading. Meanwhile, the competitor who has integrated their data is practicing in broad daylight. The great separation in golf has already begun between those who use connected ecosystems and those who don't.
The harsh reality of modern athletic development is that it's no longer just about hard work. It's about the efficiency of that work. Without the intelligence layer, your rate of improvement will be so slow and so random that you simply won't be able to compete with someone who knows exactly what to fix on swing number 1.
So, knowing all this friction exists today, where is the industry heading? Because the timelines mapped out in the sources move incredibly fast.
The forecasts lay out a very sharp trajectory. Let's look just 3 years out to 2028. We'll enter the era of the augmented assistant. We will see the normalization of augmented reality training overlays. Imagine wearing a lightweight pair of glasses on the driving range and seeing the ideal trajectory of your shot projected as a glowing line right in front of you.
That sounds amazing.
It's coming. AI caddy usage among serious amateurs is projected to hit 50%. And we'll see the standardization of hybrid coaching, where a player might take one in-person lesson a month, but an AI monitors their daily practice remotely to ensure they're actually doing the drills correctly.
That's just 3 years away. What happens to the 5-year mark in 2030?
By 2030, this sector shifts to predictive performance. The technology will stop merely telling you what just happened after you hit the ball. Instead, by integrating with wearable biometric sensors tracking your fatigue, stress levels, and heart rate variability, the intelligence layer will predict what will happen.
I want to make sure I grasp the scale of that. You're saying the system will know that I'm about to slice the ball into the woods before I even pull the club out of my bag, simply because it detects a spike in my heart rate and a drop in my physical stamina.
Precisely. It will tell you to club down and aim left because your nervous system is degrading.
Wow.
And looking 10 years out to 2035, AI becomes the standard coaching entry layer for the masses. We will see the deployment of fully conversational robot coaches, high-fidelity digital avatars equipped with flawless computer vision that will teach the fundamental mechanics to beginners at a fraction of the cost of a human professional.
Which begs the ultimate existential question for the industry. Does this mean the human golf coach is obsolete? Are they going to be replaced by an algorithm?
Emphatically, no. AI will not replace the coach. AI will liberate the coach.
Liberate them to do what exactly?
To stop being a human high-speed camera, the role of the PGA professional will evolve dramatically. They'll transition from being a subjective observer looking for flaws in mechanics into an objective leader and strategist. When the AI handles the biomechanical diagnosis perfectly every single time, the human coach's value shifts entirely to course management, competitive psychology, emotional support, and navigating the human elements of the game that a machine simply cannot replicate.
I really love that perspective. The ultimate goal of all this loud, flashy, buzzing technology is actually what the sources call quiet clarity. Eventually, the sensors and the cameras and the AI will become so good and so seamless that they just fade completely into the background. You won't even realize you're interfacing with a supercomputer. You'll just be playing better golf.
It is the final maturation of any technology. We move from obsessing over the tool itself to simply looking through the tool to see our own potential more clearly.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative concept from the research to mull over. As this intelligence layer matures over the next 10 years, you are going to encounter a phenomenon experts are calling the invisible player.
When you show up to your local club tournament, your toughest competitor won't just be the physical person standing on the tee box next to you.
No, your real competitor will be the unseen AI that shaped their practice routine, selected their equipment based on billions of data points, and optimized their strategy for the last 6 months.
Exactly. It's a profound shift in competition. So the question you have to ask yourself, whether it applies to your golf game, the way you learn a new skill at your job, or any other competitive pursuit in your life, if you aren't building your own invisible player right now, are you already falling behind?
It's definitely something to think about.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a moment today to think about how you are utilizing the data in your own life. Are you just staring at the fractured pieces, or are you connecting them to see the whole picture? We'll see you next time.